All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard. This is Hanging Out with Mad Mimi. We are here every Wednesday at 4 o'clock. Today, we are joined by myself, Becca. I'm here with my teammate, Joe. Hello, Joe.
Hello.
And we're joined today by Sally McGraw of the blog Already Pretty. Welcome aboard, Sally.
Hello, thank you.
How you doing today?
I'm excellent. There's no snow here in my lovely Minnesota, so I'm thrilled.
Nice. It's finally getting to that time of year when Minnesota is not covered in snow.
Mhm.
Awesome. So we're going to hang out and talk a bit today about all of these awesome things that you do with your blogs and your writing. So folks who are watching, feel free to use that Q&A button. You might see it at the top of your screen. There should be a little grid. And if you hit the Q&A button, you can type any questions in, and we'll be happy to answer them. Questions for Sally, questions for Joe, questions for me, anybody, wherever you have to ask. So Sally, I guess we briefly touched on the many, many things you do. Do you want to give us sort of like a rundown, maybe a nutshell version of all the awesome stuff you do?
Sure. Yeah. One of the things I was saying is the blog that I write called Already Pretty is sort of the platform on which I've built my business. But I am a very long-winded, verbose writer, and so I'm acutely aware of the fact that blogs such as mine will probably go the way of the dinosaur virtually any minute now. So I try and have sort of a variety of income streams and different types of work that I keep going on. So there's the blog. I have recently taken on the shopping tips channel for about.com. So about.com is one of those sort of black hole websites where if you go to Google and type in how do I get gum out of my hair, you may end up with an about article, and you won't find one of mine because I don't actually know how to get gum out of my hair. But I can tell you all about where to shop for, boho basics and best kinds of cashmere sweaters. So I'm really enjoying doing that. I occasionally contribute to the Huffington Post. That's been a little bit more sporadic lately, but I do contribute style articles to the style section and then a lot of body image content to the women's section. I have a monthly column with the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, which is a Q&A column. I really love answering questions from people. I feel like I can pull a topic out of my hat and just start talking about it, but I'd much rather do something that I know is going to help someone who has a question. So I really enjoy the column. And I have a weekly TV segment on Fox 9. I actually did that just this morning. I was talking about the ballet-influenced trend, tulle skirts and wrap sweaters and all that fun stuff. So if you tune in around 9:30 to Channel 9, if anybody out there is local to Minneapolis. And I have a sort of secretive teen project that I'm doing, a style and body image project for teen girls that I probably won't be able to announce for another year, but has been really interesting. It's just been fun to talk with teen girls about style and body image because their perspective on it is so different than, remembering back to when I was that age. So it's been an interesting journey. So
That is awesome. That sounds like a really cool project, actually.
yeah.
Keep us posted on when that ends up coming out. We'd love to have you back and talk about it. That'd be super cool.
Definitely.
Awesome. So we were talking a bit about like routines and how you don't really, I guess, have a routine, but are there certain like things you do or tools you use to stay organized between all of these different projects and contributions and things?
Yes, if I didn't have Google Calendar, I would be a quivering blob on the floor. I have things in there like, don't forget to take your medicine, and this is the time when you need to exercise, in addition to blocking off time for, client work or blog posts. Oh, I didn't mention client work. I do style consultations for people also. I do them here in person and I do them online. And so some of that will be, like when I'm using Google Calendar, I've got everything color-coded. And I've chosen to make anything that means me leaving the house red, which is bad. You look at it and you're like, oh God, this is a very red week. I have a lot going on. Sort of like red marker on writing. But
Yeah.
also it's sort of a good trigger for me. It's like, you have to get dressed and look.
Got your pants on today.
Exactly. But I also block off time, helps me organize my week. If I have to figure out what my next Star-Tribune column, I do contribute to the Mad Mimi blog, and I need to figure out what my topic is going to be and write for that. So I just chunk off times, and that helps me make sure that I actually get everything done that needs doing.
It'd be interesting actually to know because I'm sure there's a lot of people that are doing email marketing and blogging. was the schedule that you've got in place, where you've got you know, a very standard schedule, you write everything out, did that kind of come as you went into doing kind of mostly at home online writing and business like that, or did it kind of start? Was that a good motivator for you to really start getting into it and being more organized and being able to do all these different things?
No, I think actually I remember my first day as a free agent, you know, self-employed person, sort of sitting down on my computer and going, how am I going to do this? I don't have any idea what I'm doing. And then I had even more sort of miscellaneous tasks up in the air. And over the course of the first couple of weeks, I just realized I have the memory of a goldfish. So if I don't write things down and have something that actively reminds me to do them, then they just will not get done. It's hilarious. My husband will say, remind me to do blah, blah, blah. And I just look at him like, really? Are you really saying that to me? Have you met me? Because it's not going to happen. So using the calendar just turned out to be the perfect way to keep myself organized and make sure I'm on top of everything. And, you know, little things are going to fall through the cracks without an organizational tool. And I love that it will email me and you know, I don't have to go to it. It comes right to me and says, hey, this is next, so don't forget.
Right. Yeah, you can even
That's
email.
awesome. It's also
Yeah,
it's also reassuring that you don't have to be an organized person to, you know, manage all of these things. Like, you don't have to be one of those like very insane detail. You can get it done without having to be that person in the first place. I was wondering how you got started in, you know, in this world, sort of as a self-employed person, like you're just talking about. You sort of, I feel like you have a cool story about that, maybe, or is there some fun way you fell into this, or?
Well, so the way I got into doing the blog in the first place is I grew up like a lot of women do, kind of hating my body and tried to diet myself into submission, and it never worked. And shortly after I moved here, I started playing around with clothes and figured out that, hey, there isn't actually anything wrong with my body, and changing how I present it made me feel better than trying to force it to be a shape and size that it was not naturally wanting to be. So I started exploring fashion personally, and I had people giving me input. I actually literally had a friend say, I love how you dress, I hate how I dress, will you make me over? And I thought, yeah, you know, I like telling people what to do, that sounds fun. So I wrote down some tips in advance of our meeting, and she, again, this is my friend Jan, I credit her with everything. She came to me and said, this is great, people would love this, you should put this on a blog. And I figured, you know, using style as a tool for positive self-image had worked really well for me, and most of the women in my life were struggling with body image issues. And I knew it wasn't going to be the cure-all for everyone everywhere, but having a platform to discuss it as a potential solution for some people felt like a good idea. So that's how the blog came about, and that was in 2007, which just seems like ages ago now. And at that time, I was working at the University of Minnesota Foundation, and the way that I became self-employed was just, I wanted it, you know, so I just worked towards it as much as I could and tried to accumulate, you know, in addition to ad revenue from the site and affiliate marketing revenue from the site, started to sort of plant the seeds for some of the things that I'm doing now, so I had other streams of income. But I remember someone told me once that before you go out on your own, you're supposed to have 6 months' salary socked away somewhere, and I really super didn't have that. And I also know that I'm in a very privileged position to have a husband who is gainfully employed, so I definitely had a safety net there, and I know a lot of people it would be a much bigger risk. For me, it was more of a calculated risk. But I think the blog had been around for 4 or 5 years before I took the leap, because you know, you hear these stories about bloggers who, you know, they launch their blog and a month later they're in the New York Times making $1 million a month. No, that is not me at all. It happens to some people, but I had a very, very slow climb audience-wise and revenue-wise, so it took a while to ramp up. And then I left in, oh dear, I'm not going to remember the year, but it was definitely September. I think it's been 3 or 4 years now. And I'm a double Capricorn with Taurus rising. I like routine, and I never thought I would do well as a freelance person who had to, you know, sort of juggle from month to month how much money was coming in. But I honestly can't imagine going back. I think it would be tough to go back to being an employee of someone else at this point.
Yeah, actually,
Really?
what you've mentioned is pretty cool because um, I've noticed that's my favorite part really of blogs and how personalized they can be. You had mentioned that it come from you already having that experience of style being a good motivator. It just helped you personally, and then wanting to share that. Was that a really good part, I would assume, because where it is today, at the beginning stages, were there people reaching out to you being like, thanks, this is really cool, this is unique, I'm glad that someone is getting this angle? Because it seems like that would be a part of it, and for me at least, that would be a big motivator, knowing that it was reaching a cool audience.
Yes, I feel incredibly fortunate to have readers who reach out to me, have been for many years, and continue to reach out and say that they're grateful for what I'm doing, which is incredibly humbling. You know, I feel like I have such admiration for people who go out and do the poster boards and marches type of activism, but it's just not how I'm built. You know, I don't feel effective. I don't feel like I'm doing what I need to do, and it's super uncomfortable for me. But having a space where I can have a larger discussion with people all over the world about body image and feeling good about themselves and their questions about style and how it figures into, you know, feminism and how the patriarchy is influencing all of those forces is just, it's amazing. And I've had people from all over the world reach out and say that they're glad that I'm doing what I'm doing, and every time it sort of makes me tear up because I feel like I could never have envisioned this for myself. You know, when I got out of school, I wouldn't have thought that this would be where I am. But I'm glad to be here, and I'm really grateful to everybody who reads and reaches out. It's really, it's a lovely place to be.
I'm so glad that it's working out that way, because like it seems like you are the kind of person who is so good at, you know, direct sort of one-on-one interaction and you know, really getting into someone's head and helping an individual, you know, person. So it's nice that you've managed to design this life for yourself, that you were able to do this through so many different venues too. You know, not just through one particular project, but through all of them.
Yeah.
When you first started out, like what, well, I guess before you started out, because you were saying just now, like maybe you didn't expect that from your life. What did you sort of think you were going to do? Like when you grew up, what did you think it was going to be instead?
Oh boy. So I went to college to get a creative writing degree, and because I had read a lot of Arthurian legend books, I was like, what I'm going to do is write the next revision of the Arthurian legends, because
Wow.
you know, I've read a lot of fiction, so obviously that means I can write it. And I got into my first fiction workshop and found out very quickly that no, I can't. I have no mind for dialogue or plot or any of that stuff. So I thought, well, all right, I guess I'll take some poetry classes and tread water for a while. But I also joined the newspaper, my school's newspaper. I went to Binghamton University in upstate New York, and just started taking some journalism classes and thought, okay, I can make money as a journalist. I will review music and bands and albums, and that will be my thing. I've been singing since I could speak, so I have a lot of musical background. And I was able to sort of wedge my way into the Binghamton paper as a stringer for a little while, and I thought, this is going to be great. And then it just died. And I have a cousin she's written for the Times-Picayune in New Orleans for years and years, and she has the job that every writer dreams of. Basically, she decides what she wants to write about, and she can get the center spread on whatever it is. She can interview World War II veterans. She can go to 15 restaurants and do a comparative review of them all. They will publish it. It's magical. I don't know how she did it. So I got her on the phone at one point, and I said, I can't get any work. I don't know what's going on. And she said, you have to know somebody on the inside. Journalism is not something that you can just waltz into a newspaper office and say, I have this journalism degree and all this experience, let's go. Because most of the time, unless you have a connection, it won't work out for you. So that went out the window, and I spent, gosh, almost 15 years doing a wide variety of marketing communications related stuff. None of it was actually writing, but it was all sort of writing related. I worked for book publishers, I worked for Minnesota Public Radio, and other marketing departments too. So everything went in very different directions, and it wasn't until the blog came along that I sort of came all the way back around to wanting to write on a regular basis. And now writing is definitely what I do most, and I still love doing it, but I had to get pretty far away from it to really come back there.
Absolutely. That's cool. I think this is actually a perfect time. We just got a question in from our viewer, Gail. Hi, Gail. Thank you for asking a question. So she wants to know, she says she's really interested in how you monetize your blog. and you had mentioned ads and affiliate marketing. Can you talk some more about that? So Gail is an artist with 2 blogs, and she also writes a lot of content, but she sort of wants to work on making money from it as well.
Yes, definitely. I feel like this is something that should be talked about more. I don't actually know why people aren't more open about how blogs make money, but the main ways that I make money off of my blog are as follows. I have ads that pay me for page impressions, so I make more money off of those ads the more traffic I receive. And there are a lot of different ad networks that you can sign up for as a blogger. If you are a woman, Blog Her is a great organization to go with. The one that I am using now is style specific, so that's why it works really nicely for me. But you can definitely explore a number of different ad networks. You can also put up Google ads, which will pay you for page impressions as well. So that's sort of the traffic-based part of it. I also sell little individual ads to, Etsy vendors and people who have small businesses so that I can support them and get their names out there as well. So those go into my sidebar as well. But the main way that I make money off of my blog is through affiliate marketing, which in a nutshell is if you go and look at one of my posts and say it's a post where I'm rounding up handbags, and you click on one of the links and go to Amazon, and then you don't necessarily buy the handbag, but you buy some peanut butter and a flash drive, I will make commission off of whatever you bought. And I feel like one of the things I always say when I talk about affiliate marketing is I think it's really important to disclose the fact that you're doing it. There are certain, rules about disclosure when it comes to blogging, but I don't think that there's anything hard and fast about disclosing affiliate marketing. I just feel like as long as you tell people I might make money if you click on one of my links, then you're being as transparent as possible, and if they aren't comfortable with that arrangement, they can search for whatever it is elsewhere. And I think that is a great way to build trust. And I also feel like there are a lot of ways to utilize affiliate marketing no matter what you're blogging about. So if you are an artist, then finding a way to link to art supply stores, or there are places that have monetized Etsy. So if you want to send people to your Etsy store or other people's Etsy stores, then you can make a small amount of commission off of those things. So those are the main ways that I make money off of my blog. There are also sponsored post opportunities for a lot of bloggers. I think that they're great. I mean, I think that's a wonderful way to build relationships with vendors. I don't take them on myself because having had a sort of very small background in actual journalism, I just can't get comfortable with the idea that if someone is paying me money to talk about their product, I'm going to be totally objective about it. I think that's a tough line to toe, and I think people do it, and some of them do it very well, and some of them don't. Sometimes you'll see a sponsored post and think to yourself, yep, you sure definitely did get paid for this one, didn't you? And it's tough to have that content mixed in with stuff that feels a little bit more authentic, I think. But sponsored posts pay a lot of money, so if you can get into that game and you're comfortable with that, then that's another great way to make money off of your blog.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely. It's interesting you mentioned that people don't tend to talk about it that much, and I think there's this sort of assumption that there's something inherently untrustworthy about it, but it's really not. I think you wrote a great post for the Mad Mimi blog about how to monetize without being sleazy, and it is pretty simple. It's just keep your readers in mind, and if you're giving them stuff that you already believe in anyway, and it's stuff that you would be using in the first place, then I don't think it's necessarily sleazy to mention it and be like, hey, by the way, I got some money too. Yeah. I think it's totally fair. Actually, I have another question. Here, let me.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. This is from Alex. Hi, Alex. I didn't know you. He wants to know what has led to the most dramatic increase in traffic over the years. You have references to traditional media, magazines, newspapers, TV, and how has that worked for Already Pretty?
That's a great question, and the answer may or may not surprise you, but it surprised the hell out of me. I have had fairly small, but still a couple of write-ups in major national magazines. I've had a lot of TV and radio exposure. It does nothing for me when it comes to traffic. Also, I write for About.com and Huffington Post. Nothing. They do nothing for my stats at all. Most of that is just looks great on the resume, and with some of it brings in money. But really, when it comes to traffic, at least for me, it's been very surprising. It's mostly just other mid-level bloggers That is where the majority of my new traffic has come from.
Wow.
And I think, you know, it makes sense to me when it comes to the TV, radio, and print stuff, because there are very few times when you're going to see something mentioned on TV or open up a magazine and see something and then go, I am so interested in this that I'm going to trot right over to my computer and manually type in the URL and go check it out. You know, people are lazy, and I'm like that too. But if there's a link to something, then it's made so easy for you, and you just click and you go. So especially early on, as I was building my audience, it was the sort of cross-pollination of blogs that really made it possible for my audience to grow. And I do a link roundup on every Friday now, and I feel like it's a really important community building tool. If you are a blogger, it builds goodwill, it helps your audience connect with other bloggers, you connect with them, you can end up doing some cross-posting. It's just a great way to build community and build audience.
Yeah, actually,
That's
and this
awesome.
seems to be kind of the theme of some of the questions here. And I was thinking on my own too, does this ever just come down to you writing to people, like saying, I've got this blog and it seems to be doing well, just kind of pushing yourself out there? And has that ever worked for you, other than you mentioned the blog for female bloggers? I don't remember what was the URL for that. I think you had mentioned a group
I'm
blog.
sorry, you dropped out for a minute.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Just like a group blog, you said, for female bloggers you had
Oh,
used
blog
for.
her.
Yeah, blog
Yeah.
her, yeah. So besides that, have you gotten any luck from just reaching out to people that might be able to help with affiliate? Like, hey, would you be able to sponsor my blog? That kind of stuff?
No. That has also been a big surprise to me too. And I have done things where, you know, I feel like a couple of years ago, style bloggers were approached pretty frequently by companies that wanted to have them host giveaways or, you know, showcase products and outfit posts. And that slowed down for me a little bit, which is fine. Believe me, I have plenty of stuff. But there had been times when I'd worked with a company, you know, they'd given me a pair of shoes and everything had gone really nicely. And so I'd reach out and say, hey, I'd love it if you'd place an ad on my blog, or if we could find another way to collaborate. And it never worked. And I don't think that I was being a jerk or, you know, doing something that was completely unexpected. But what I found that, and this is probably very specific to me, because I know there are a lot of bloggers out there who have great polished press kits and reach out all the time and end up making great vendor connections. But I have just had to wait for people who are interested in working with me in that capacity to come to me, which is kind of a good lesson in just sort of trusting to the universe and letting things, you know, going with the flow, but can also be kind of frustrating if you want to work with a specific company and they just aren't open to your message. There are also, I don't know if you guys are aware, there are sort of agencies that work with bloggers at this point. Digital Brand Architects, I think, is the big gun out in New York. And if you have an enormous audience and you're looking to create some of those brand relationships, signing on with an agency like that can be great, because those guys have the connections and they're going to broker those deals for you, so you don't have to cold call on, you know, Amazon or, I don't know, Nike, whoever it is you're trying to build a relationship with. They're going to help ease that relationship into existence. But they don't tend to work with small and mid-level bloggers who kind of have to be kind of up there when it comes to traffic. But eventually there may be more of those. I mean, I think that online fame has a lot more weight to it now than we would have thought it would have had 5 years ago. So I imagine that there will be more and more agencies like that cropping up eventually.
Totally. Do you have any like advice for those smaller bloggers who are trying to get started and increase their reach? Is there any sort of you know, piece of advice you can give them if they want to expand a little bit?
Well, so I'm happy to share some. I don't feel like I have any searing insights that they couldn't find by just sort of looking around and doing a Google search. But, you know, I would say the most important thing is be consistent, both in terms of your voice and your message and just a posting schedule. It doesn't have to be every day, but it should be at least twice a week, preferably on the same day, so that everyone knows that you're reliable and that they can expect new content from you on a regular basis. And in terms of growing your audience, I would say, above all, be patient because most of us aren't the kind who rise into the stratosphere the second we launch our blogs. So have patience and grow your audience slowly. Organic growth is a great thing. Guest posting and cross-posting is a great way to build your audience. It can be a little tough to do when you're getting started because it often means that you're reaching out to someone and saying, hi, I'm just getting started. I wonder if you would be open to letting me do a guest post. If you're going to do that, I would say have at least 3 super awesome topics in mind when you reach out and explain why those topics would be a great fit for that person's audience. So you're not just saying, hey, I'd love to guest post. What do you think? Because, you know, in all likelihood, they're going to say, no. You know, I mean, why would they say yes to someone who's just getting started and doesn't offer something really specific? I would also recommend connecting with your audience by engaging them and asking for their input and their requests, if that's a format that works for whatever it is your topic might be, because that may not, it's not going to be something that you can track through analytics, but if you build loyalty with your audience by doing something like that, you will probably get a lot of word of mouth. You know, if someone feels like a valued audience member, they're more likely to talk about your blog to other people or maybe even send your link around. So those are some. Oh, and also, if you're going to do social media, which obviously you are, don't try and do all 900 of them and do all 900 of them poorly. Yeah. And this is a lesson that I feel like I'm not taking to heart either, because I'm trying to do 900 of them and I kind of suck at most of them. If you can do 1 or 2 social media really well, that's what you need to do instead of trying to spread yourself so thin over all of them, because you know, even when it comes down to blogging, like I've talked to companies who have said, well, we need to get a blog going for a company, and my response is inevitably, are you going to be able to post regularly? Because if you can't, it's going to look way worse for you to have a blog that has 2 posts and the last one is from a year ago than it is for you to not have one at all. And I think that applies to social media too. You know, if you have a Twitter feed and you haven't posted anything in 6 months, there's no point in having it anymore. So figure out which ones you like and excel at and focus on those.
It sounds, yeah, it's cool to hear, because it sounds, and from what I've seen from, you know, all over the place, from blogging to even just YouTube celebrities basically that are cropping up now, is just this theme of honesty being like a really hopefully good force in making yourself more well known. If you have an honest, you know, persona and your posts are consistent, like you said, you're making sure to keep to yourself and also what you've started, people that will come to you will be able to see that you've been going at it, and it's charming, it's unique, and that's what I think a lot of people are actually looking for online. So I mean, it's cool. I think it's a really cool part of the like online business angle.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and I think, you know, bloggers are this weird hybrid of a regular person and a celebrity in a lot of cases, and I think that people like that because they feel like they are reaching out to someone who may have a little more expertise or a little more exposure than just the average Joe walking down the street, but it's still someone that you can send an email to and maybe expect to get a response within a couple of days. You know, it's someone who feels more like you than, you know, a national celebrity might. So that's kind of the sweet spot with blogs, and I think that's why sponsored posts have become such a big thing, because brands know that. They look at bloggers and they say, aha, this is perfect. This isn't a celebrity endorsement that feels a little bit above everybody's heads. This is someone who is going to go into their sort of grassroots population and say, I loved doing this, I love this product, and people will say, well, I trust that person. So it works out well for everybody.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I found the advice you give for, you know, for building a good audience with your blog is actually the same advice I give people about newsletters, about building their email newsletter audiences. It's the exact same thing. You know, you want to be consistent and be reliable, and, you know, have a real personality. You know, make it clear that you're, you know, a real person who they can sort of feel like they can talk to, and you know, actually respond to your emails. And you know, it really does. It sounds very simple, but it makes a huge difference just to be accessible and, you know, have a real personality, be an honest person. It works very well. So
I totally agree.
It also sounds, in regards to some of these questions that are coming up, you would almost say that the monetizing aspect, which is, I mean, even with the honesty part, it's nice to talk about, it's great. A lot of people also are like, what about the monetizing part? is that you're kind of it seems like you're kind of implying, and what I've seen too is that that actually comes if you're committed to it from the get-go. You've got an idea that you're excited about, and if you've kind of got more of an angle of, you know, I've got something I think it could probably start making me money, it might not work as well as something that you're kind of creatively committed to. You've got personality. You are, as you said, don't just shotgun approach like, oh, I know I should do Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, should have all of those. I'll post on every single one all the time. Then it just kind of loses that personal touch, which is kind of ironic because it's online. But the people that are able to hold that, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like if you're able to hold that long enough, attention comes to you from people that are scouting for this.
Yes, definitely. And I think, you know, there are a couple of aspects of that that are worth mentioning. And one of them is if you are launching a blog right now with the idea of making millions of dollars off of it, you're going to be sorely disappointed, both because the market is glutted on pretty much every subject you could possibly imagine, and because if you go into this endeavor with the idea in mind that you want to just milk it for a bunch of cash, then you aren't going to convey that authenticity and that approachableness that is what most people are craving from a blog. So, you know, if you, for instance, so I write about style. If you start a style blog and all you do is just post a bunch of products over and over again, roundups of different things, there's no there, you know. I mean, unless you're putting some content in there that has either your personality or some useful information, or preferably both of those things, then no one's going to come to read that. You know, you don't get to be a tastemaker and recommend a bunch of products just by declaring yourself one. And I say that as someone who knows full well that I am a self-made expert. You know, I don't have training as a stylist. I know what I know now because I've spent the past 7-8 years writing about it and studying it and working with people. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I do think that to think that that kind of expertise and trust will come immediately is going to leave you very disappointed. And I think that you're right. You know, I mean, what people want from bloggers is someone that they can relate to. But that can lead you down a sort of dark path too. You know, I actually just went through an interesting transformation where I realized that I was continuing to dress in a certain way because I thought that was what my readers wanted. When I went out on my own, I posted that I was going to, and I had a number of people say, well, you're not going to an office anymore. You don't have any parameters. I don't understand why I would ever relate to you anymore. You can wear whatever you want. So I sort of tried to, you know, counteract that and be like, no, I'm going to continue to dress as if I am going to the office every day and continue to dress in the same way for years and years. And at some point, it was like someone flipped a switch in my head, and I thought, I don't need to wear high heels every day. I just don't. I'm not doing anything where that is a necessity, and I don't want to do it anymore. And so I totally changed my style. It was within, you know, a couple of weeks, I went from doing, you know, fit and flare dresses, lots of color, high heels, all this very girly stuff, and now it's sort of more along the rocker, badass, edgy kind of look, which is, I feel so much better about myself. And I was interested to see that my readers reacted so positively. They're like, this is great. You should absolutely be who you are, you know, and we want that from you. We don't want you to pretend to be someone in order to please us. We want you to be you, and we'll accept you as you are because what you're doing is what you really want to do. So I think
that's really cool.
Yeah, it was a good life lesson, you know.
I love that it's sort of, I mean, that I feel like that is the message you send to your readers most of the time. So it's really cool that even after this long, you can still learn the same thing back from them, you know. That's
beautiful. I learn every day too, definitely. I don't feel like I'm solely the teacher. I'm definitely the student as well.
Oh, yay. I love that. It's all the warm fuzzies. Awesome. Well, I think we are almost about out of time, but there's no cutoff point. If anybody has any other questions they want to drop in before we wrap up, you can use your Q&A button up at the top there.
Yeah, it looks like there's... Sorry, I was just going to say, it looks like we've got one actually that's a specific one for just your area of expertise. Got someone what are some major trends these days in women's fashion? And specifically, are there any opinions on the Apple Watch?
Okay, actually, Joseph, you kind of cut out for the first
Okay.
part. You were fuzzy.
Sure, yeah.
So the Apple Watch I got, what was the first part?
Yeah, so basically, we just got a person asking what would be some trends on women's fashion these days.
Gotcha. All right. Well, if you're talking about what is coming off of the runway, then I would say there's a lot of 70s throwback stuff coming out, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to. I mean, I encourage everyone to thrift and buy on consignment because I feel like you can get better quality stuff for much cheaper, and you're doing something good for the environment instead of going to Forever 21 and buying cheap garbage that's going to disintegrate after 5 wears. So if you want to do 70s throwback through your thrift store, by all means. But there are also a lot of really fun items, especially jeans are sort of shifting towards a flare style at this point. So that's something you can keep an eye out for. Fringe and Western trends are also coming up big this season. Let's see, what else did I see? I was talking about the ballet influence trend this morning on TV. So, you know, tulle skirts, but also things like sheer fabrics and lots of draping. Oh, I should have totally written some stuff down.
Well, I'm just
Those are the
personally
that come to
glad
mind.
the Western thing is coming back because I can bring back my cowboy boots. Those are very exciting.
Well, cowboy boots are eternal. I guess the only other thing I would say is I've noticed that at least the magazines are saying that skinny jeans are sort of not the preferred silhouette anymore, and we're moving more towards a straight leg, which I think makes lots and lots of women want to throw a gigantic party because they've hated skinny jeans all along, and a straight leg is a considerably less clingy, revealing cut to wear. So that may be good news. In terms of the Apple Watch, I know nothing. I haven't been following it too terribly much, but I feel like it seems like whenever Apple comes out with a product and everybody sort of goes, oh, okay, Apple, then within 6 months we're all like, I need that in my life right now. So we may be looking at it now and sort of going, I don't think so, but I would be willing to bet we'll all be wearing Apple Watches by next year.
I've definitely had those conversations where everyone's like, no, it's going to be awesome. And I'm like, I just don't understand why. But I said the same thing about the iPad and now I have one. So.
So did I.
Awesome. All right. Do you have any, words of wisdom, any things you want to share with folks before we head off into the ether?
Probably just that I would love for anybody who's watching to consider style as an alternative to diets and Botox and surgery. It can be a great way to express yourself and also choose a different way to present your body without actually changing your body, because there's nothing wrong with your body just as it is, no matter what anybody tells you, be it a magazine or a fitness expert or any of that. You do not, if everyone looked alike, we would be so bored. And there's no wrong way to have a body. And there's also no wrong way to be stylish. I feel like a lot of style experts like to tell people that there's a wrong way and a right way to do things, but that's baloney. Absolutely nothing you wear is going to cause you to burst into flames. And if what you're wearing is something that someone else thinks is wrong, then that's their problem and not your problem at all. You should wear what feels good to you, both physically and in terms of your own taste, and use style as a way to express the parts of your inner self that you want the outer world to see.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you so much, Sally. This was awesome. And folks, if you came in late or you want to watch this again, it will be on YouTube, and we will share it on the social media things. And we'll send a follow-up email to everybody who's on our little email list, too. So, Sally, thank you so much. You are so awesome and just multi-talented and very inspiring. This was so much fun.
Also, just to mention, if anyone has questions they weren't comfortable asking, they can absolutely email me or contact me. I love questions. I love helping people, so please just reach out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and I'm sure they will. All right, folks, thank you all so much. See you next week, and have a great day. Bye.